in chapter 10 of the book Blown Away, there's a profound experience for myself, and this is a huge part of my conversion experience. And within that, and I want to talk about the context of it, I meet the man I'd fantasized all my life of killing, the man that was my childhood abuser. And I see him there, I see his face, I see his eyes. And in the moment, I want to hurt him. And I'm going to be graphic, I wanted to cut his throat. I wanted him to suffer. And that's how I felt inside as I walked towards him. And as I opened my mouth, the words I wanted to say to him didn't come out. But I still held the hatred inside me, in the pit of my every being. And I was able to buy him a coffee and sit down and listen to him. All the time, looking at his face, into his eyes, and just thinking of the first punch or just plunging a knife into his neck, a knife that I had on my person. But I made a choice. And I sort of began to understand what forgiveness was in that moment. And it was, forgiveness had been a misunderstood concept in my mind all my life. Forgiveness had meant to me till this point of saying, it's okay what you did. Everything's okay. Give us a cuddle. And it isn't. Forgiveness is saying, I'm not going to live in your sin. Mine's been bad enough. And I got this peace inside me in the midst of the hatred and the venom that I had. And it's none of my business. It's between him and God. And the conversion experience I'm talking about involved me having a choice. I chose not to end that man's life. I chose not to do him any violent act. And it was at the moment that I decided to not, and I felt God's grace being poured into me. I had no power to not hurt him. I became powerless. I rendered myself powerless. And the grace poured in. And the conversion, so me from the old self to the new self, began massively in that moment. I made a choice that affected the rest of my life and led me to be able to go out and give the gospel to other people and to tell people about forgiveness and how you can participate in God's grace, how you can be changed, how you can accept a conversion experience into your life and into your heart. So that conversion experience, or the beginning of it anyway, it was the beginning of my total conversion, allowed me to access a love that I'd never known. It was thinking, my thought process began to change, and it was, you'll find this in the book, it was, God loves you, mate. But he loves him as well. What, him? Yeah, I love him as well, mate. And that allowed me to access love in a completely different way. Now, I can't say that I loved my abuser like Jesus would, but what I can say is I no longer hated him. And that was such a change. That allowed me to access a love on a completely different level. It allowed me to accept him for who he is. And his crimes and his sins, I leave to God. They're none of my business. My business is to love and care for people and show them a new way. So conversion is a choice and allows you to access a love beyond your wildest dreams, the love to be able to forgive, to let go, and to leave things and people in the hands of God. It's none of my business. So remember, we talked about surrender in one of the other videos, and I said about taking the bullets out of the gun, the bitterness, the resentment, and the anger. And you need the grace of God to do that, for that allows that conversion experience to be more authentic. So I had to see my own bitterness, my own resentment, my anger, my just wanting to commit violence. I had to see it, and I had to surrender that to God. And the surrendering to God was to not act on it. Surrender is important in your and my conversion experience. It brings the love of God to the fore and relieves you from the bondage of yourself. So as you can see and understand in what I've said, that forgiveness was a huge part of the beginning of my conversion experience. I think to just reiterate again, because it's very important, that forgiveness is never saying it's all right. Forgiveness is saying, I don't need to live in somebody else's sin. And that's as good as it got for me. And it still is. You know, some people I can love and put my arms around that's hurt me, that's fine. But in some situations, it's not me doing the forgiving, you see. I feel like I've been truly forgiven for some of the terrible things I've done, some of which are in the book and a lot are not. But I feel forgiven and I feel empowered to forgive others. But my humanness gets in the way and wants me to hate and wants me to strike out and fight back. I don't have to. I'm forgiven. And that makes it so much easier to forgive others. And that allows that access to that love. Things that are in the way need to get out of the way so I can connect with God. And that's what that does. That allows that conversion experience to just overwhelm me. I have to get out of the way. And that's what that process is, getting yourself out of the way.